Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode ever of Beyond Employment with me, Bill, the company's expert. Hello. It's extremely late. It's like 1,000,000 but we're here. We're doing the live stream thing anyway. And we're just going to do it and see what happens. A lot of people wanted me to do this, but most of them couldn't make it, so I'm here doing it anyway. There are 2 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I'm actually surprised that people actually showed up for this. That's great. That's great. Thank you for being here. I hope to be informative. We are going to talk about a natural extension of getting hired, right? Getting hired, after all, is about making money. It's about making a living. And most people have traditional jobs. That's the way they make a living, that they have money coming in. But there are alternatives. And on this channel, I don't really get a chance to talk about the alternatives. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Our focus is mainly going to be on starting your own business. Okay, this could be in the form of a side hustle. It could be in a traditional small business. It could be more of the innovative startup type. Okay. I've advised people on all of those. I've had experience in all of those, and we're going to get into it. Now, a little explanation just at the beginning of this here. If you're wondering, okay, today, you may notice that the chat is members only. Okay. Everybody can see this, but the only people that can ask questions are members only. Let me explain. On Wednesdays, I do a Q&A live stream where everybody can just ask questions, and that's great because I get a ton of questions, and it's awesome. But the material tonight, it's not something that you can explain in little 30-second, 1-minute bursts. There's a bit of a longer story, and I find that when I'm doing the Q&A, I can't really talk about anything too long because I got all these questions piling up, and I end up talking about what people ask. And the problem is, when it comes to this stuff, when it comes to how to be successful in business, how to start a side hustle, how to start your own business venture of some kind and have it be successful and have money come in, how to get your first customers. People love to ask these questions, and they're great questions, they're valid questions, but they don't have a 2-minute answer. You know what I mean? There's a lot to set up there. So for today, this is an experiment. Okay, I wanted to be able to cover a topic without having to always stop and talk about the answer to a different question all the time. So that's what's going on there. We'll try it for tonight. If you do want to ask a question and it's like really important to you, you can always join my channel. And what'll happen is the question will show up in that little blue box there, and I will see it, and I will stop and I will answer the question. We'll try that. I don't know if anyone's going to ask a question, but that's what we're going to try and go with tonight and see if it works. As I said, this is the first time I'm doing this particular type of live stream, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yes, a lot of people want me to do this, so we're going to do it. Now, we're going to cover a couple of different things here, but the first thing that everyone really needs to know when it comes to alternative sources of employment, shall we say, whether you want to, at the high end, you could be an investor. Okay, that's what rich people do. Rich people, they're investors. What do rich people who have money do? What's the thing that they all need to know if they have lots of money? It's how to manage money. What does that mean? That means when you go to university or you go to wherever, college, maybe even, finance. They know finance, okay? That's kind of a requirement for being rich, okay? You can never really get people who are rich that stay rich for long that don't know finance, because it just sort of comes with the game. If you want to manage money and have money, you need to know about money. So that's what finance is. Finance is about money in the future. Accounting is money in the past. Finance is money in the future. Finance is like, what could you do with your money and what would be the likely outcome? That's finance. Accounting is more like, it's money in the past. It's more like, how much money did we make? Where did the money go? questions like that about money in the past. So if you have a lot of money, you want to know what to do with it, finance is the thing you need to know. And what I would recommend is that anybody who has some ambition one day, like one day in a galaxy far, far away, you want to have your own business, you want to work for yourself, you don't want to have to answer to some boss man like me or anyone else. If that's something that you're interested in, have at least a basic understanding of finance. And you can do this by picking up a $5, $10 book from many places that are easily accessible. The knowledge is all there. It's just a matter of learning it. And one point I want to make at the very beginning is that anytime you introduce money into something, okay, it becomes business. For example, let's say your ambition is to, you have very creative, artistic ambitions. You want to be a professional artist or sculptor or musician or author or something like this, okay? Those are very artistic, very creative type ambitions, right? And that's great. However, what kind of throws a spanner in the works for a lot of people is that as soon as you want to try and make money with that, okay, that you want this to be your living, you want it to be your the central thing that you do. It is the source of your income. It's your full-time occupation. As soon as that's what you want, you now step from the world of art and creativity and those kind of things into the world of business. You are forced into that world by the fact that now money is involved. Okay. If money's not involved, if it's just a hobby, you just want to sculpt or paint or play music or write books, whatever. If you just want to do that and there's no money involved, it's just something you do for personal satisfaction. It fulfills a creative need. That's wonderful. It enriches life. It's great. And you don't have to worry about business. You don't have to know business. You could know absolutely nothing about business and you'd probably be a happier person for it. But, and that's fine. You don't need it. But as soon as you want to try and make money with that thing, now you're in the world of business. You'd be surprised how many people, they don't really understand that. What I see a lot is that somebody wants to do something. Okay. Now I used examples of like art. Okay. What was it? Like painting, sculpting, music, and writing fiction or something. That extends over to other things. Okay. Like let's say that you are a technical person and in your spare time as a hobby, you've learned to code, you've learned to develop, software. Okay. And you've done a few little programs for fun and stuff, maybe a little like app or a game or, whatever. And that's cool. You're a technical person. You love technical things. You love the coding aspect of it. And, you've done this thing. You're very proud of it. It's gotten you some notoriety. Okay. And that's great. Now you want to try and go into business doing it. You want to be a professional software developer, not working for like a big company doing whatever they tell you, but you want to harness your creative power and you want to do it on the side. Well, you, my friend, have just now stepped over into the world of business because now money's involved. Okay. So that's how this enters in. Okay. As soon as you want to take something that's not related to business and then try to make money with it, you're now in the world of business. I don't care if you want to be the world's greatest ventriloquist. Okay. You could be the world's greatest food tranquilist. And, I think the way that works is you make it seem like the food is talking from across the room and your mouth doesn't even move, something like that. And that's going to make you your first million. If that's your ambition, then you're in the world of business. And you always hear about how artists and celebrities who are maybe actors and musicians, they sign these really bad contracts at the beginning of their career. And they spend the next 20 years being screwed out of a fortune by their lawyer or their agent or their business manager. It's no coincidence because those people, they understand business. And in most of those cases, the artist pretty much doesn't. So same kind of thing. So if you have an ambition to work for yourself, okay, let's say that's the direction you're going. The first thing you should do, in my opinion, is learn at least the basics of business. You don't have to devote your life to it, but it does involve you now in a pretty heavy way. It can make the difference between total success and total failure, really. So that's the first thing I'll say. And there's 19 of you guys here, so thank you for being here. I guess the real test is whether you stay or not. You could show up here and take a look at my ugly mug for 5 seconds and decide, I don't want to watch this. But hopefully this is something you're interested in learning, in which case I hope you stay. So that's kind of the first thing. Already there's a lot of people that I meet that I get questions from that haven't even got that far yet. That's like, I'd say 50% of all the people that have asked me questions and, come up to me and told me their ideas and all this kind of stuff. Already 50% of them aren't even this far. Okay. They haven't made that connection yet. So let's start with that. Okay. So if you want to be successful in business, the first thing you need to know is learn business. Not to totally beat this to death or anything, this concept, but I'll just say one more thing. Okay. It's like saying, okay, I want to be a performer on the stage. I want to be a musician, and I don't know, I love classical music, and I'm going to be an amazing violin player, a violinist. And that's your plan. Well, it would probably be a good idea to learn properly how to play the violin, right? That would probably be a good thing. Now, I get a lot of people pointing out to me that, oh, here's a famous violin player who is entirely self-taught, right? They didn't go to any fancy schools. They didn't follow the standard thing that the establishment says you have to do, right? And they just made it. Therefore, proving that everything you're saying is crap and that I don't need to learn, what I do properly. I can just do it anyway and still make it. Yes, that's true. But that's an exception, right? If you want to be an actor, I've used this story before. If you want to be an actor, right? Your goal is to make it in Hollywood or to make it in Bollywood or wherever you want. Should you go to drama school and learn your trade, your craft? Well, as we all know, there are some actors that have never been to drama school. They've never been taught how to act ever in their lives, but they're brilliant at it. So it isn't absolutely necessary. However, once again, that's an exception. Most actors who tend to be good are one of the reasons that contributes to why they're so good is because they went to acting school, right? So it helps to learn your craft, right? Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I have interacted with many startup founders in particular, and some small business owners that, they jump in with both feet. They say, I want to do this. I'm going to start this company. It's going to do this. And they jump in with both feet. They spend lots of money and they go all in. Like I'm all in, I'm going to mortgage my house. I'm going to, devote the next 3 years. I'm never going to see my family because I'm going to be working on this business. They go all in. And unfortunately, it's very tragic. They really don't know what they're doing because they don't know anything about business, really. They've never done anything like this before. And they believe that, because I know how to code, how to develop programs, a software developer, I should be able to start a business where I'm an independent software developer, and that's all I need. And they're so certain of this that they bet the farm on it. And most of those people fail, or at least in that attempt, fails. They lose their bet. It's like the equivalent of taking all your money and all your time and effort, putting it on the table, and then just having it be wiped away. Now, some of those people go on to try again later, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. They try again. They don't make the same mistakes twice, and they get closer to it, or they make it. But a lot of them just give up there. And a lot of them, they give up because they have to. Now reality hits them like a slap in the face, and they need money, period. And they can't dream anymore. They need something now, and they need something coming in. So there goes their dream, right? So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us a couple of things. First of all, it reiterates my point that, look, if this is something you want to do, learn what you're doing before you jump in, okay? Learn business, okay? You can take a business course. Like, I've got a course. Yes, I'll be talking about it. But learn business, okay? There are several key things coming together when it comes to doing your own thing. And the three things in particular, it's like a holy trinity. Three things that come together is marketing, operations, and finance. You need those three things. You need an understanding of those three things, okay? Operations, that's doing something that you do. Okay, so if you're a developer, you can write code. Great. You can now, you now have the ability to set yourself up as a software company because you can develop software. Great. Okay, wonderful. If you have a brilliant, innovative software idea, even better. Okay, so you got the operations covered. Okay, marketing. Marketing is a whole different world. Marketing is the study of customers, or groups of customers, or would-be customers. That's what marketing is, okay? So the obvious thing is that if you can do this software development, or you can, you could be an amazing food ventriloquist. You'll be the best damn food ventriloquist I've ever seen, put it that way. The thing is, there's no point in doing that or being that if nobody buys your thing, if nobody pays you, if nobody knows about you, right? That's the marketing side, okay? It's about finding who's interested or who would be interested in this thing you're doing. It's about how do you contact them. It's about what you communicate to them that gets them to want to do business with you. That's marketing, okay? So that's very important. That's as important as the operations, the thing you do, okay? There's no point in being amazing at something if you're living in a cave somewhere and nobody knows that you're doing it, right? Even the people that would pay you big money for it, if they don't even know you, right? Or know that you're there, they're unaware of your existence. What good does it do you to have invented this thing or to be able to do this thing? Absolutely nothing. Okay. So you got those two things and they exist together. They're both equally important. They're sort of like the two pillars of being able to do whatever it is you do. And in my experience, you get people that are strong in one, but not the other. I've seen a lot of technical people that are great on the operations side, but they have no clue about marketing. Absolutely no clue. That sinks them. Period. They have this unfortunate delusion that if you build it, they will come, which is completely false, by the way. Anyone who's ever tried to do something and you're like a technical type person, you're an introvert, you know what I'm talking about here because you can do this thing and it's great. And in your mind, everyone should want it, right? You want it. You see the value in it. Therefore, everyone else should instantly see the value in it, right? Wrong. Even if they were aware of you and they took a look at what you're doing, a lot of them, or most of them, who should want it, don't. That's usually how that goes, right? So how do you fix these problems? You learn about marketing. You apply the principles in marketing. And then on the other side, I've seen a lot of people who are the opposite. They're like salespeople types, right? They can sell anything to anything. Those type of people. They know a million people personally. They're social butterflies. They're extroverted. The problem is they like the idea of being in business, but they have nothing to sell. And they have to really rack their brains to figure out, what could I do? Right? They have a problem with the operations side. Now, what I've seen with both of these people, by the way, is that a lot of them kind of figure out, okay, well, I'm the technical person. I don't have the marketing down, so I will pay for the marketing. Big mistake. Doesn't work. You need to be able to do it yourself. Same thing with the salesperson. You're the salesperson, you're extroverted, you've got the purple shirt on and you're well groomed and everybody knows you and you're on Facebook all day, and you're talking to people on the phone all day and stuff like that. That's great, but you got nothing to sell. You think, no problem, I'll borrow some money and I will just pay for someone to develop a thing for me to sell. No, does not work. Failure. So you have to be competent in both of these because they influence each other. You can't sort of do them in isolation, right? What you choose to do is affected by what people need and what people will respond to, right? And vice versa, right? What you have, it also affects how you tell the world about it and how you sell it, right? So these things, you have to do these both yourself. It doesn't work any other way. Incidentally, if you want to be a business owner or anything, you also have to have these capabilities. You can't just be strong in one but not the other. You have to be aware of both and be capable in both. And then the third thing that I mentioned, which I don't really want to call it a pillar, that holds this thing up, but it's still very important. It's the thing that comes in third. It's finance. You need money to do certain things, so understanding money is important. Okay? Once again, I'm not saying accounting, I'm saying finance. It's not as important as some people think. One part of finance is the treasury function, right? You've heard of the treasury function? Treasury, like that department of the government. You hear about it when you watch the news, depending on what country you're in. And when we watch the news, it makes us feel good, right? It's always good stuff on the news, right? It doesn't divide people in any way. But yeah, so the treasury function, it's basically, treasury is how to get money. So if you're the traditional Hollywood picture of an entrepreneur, where you're like somebody that's cruising to get funding, to get financing, basically to get a loan, right? There's investors and everything, but for most people, it takes the form of a loan. Okay. It's getting money, getting something financed, right? Which means you have to get money from somewhere to fund whatever it is you're trying to do. That comes in as a distant third. But those three things are sort of the holy trinity of understanding business and being able to create a business for yourself. And there you go. 27 people are here. That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't expect this turnout. It is 2 a.m. for me right now. I figured I would do this at the end of my day rather than towards the beginning and see what happened. Yeah. So that's kind of the first thing. If you want to be in business, learn business. You just got to. And how do you know you're in business? It's whenever money is involved. Okay? You want to do something artistic, something creative? Great. As soon as money is involved, it comes into the equation where you want to try and make money with it. Now you're a business. Like it or not, you're in hell. You're in hell, okay? The good news, however, is that it really isn't that hard. Okay? For most people, if you've done something real in your life, you have like a profession. You went to school for a certain thing. Maybe you're a technical person. You have real skills. If that's you, this stuff is relatively simple to learn. You're not going to struggle with this stuff. You really aren't. Business is not that hard. It honestly isn't. Certainly the concepts and the theory are really not that hard, as evidenced by the fact that anybody who takes a bachelor degree in university, doesn't matter what you took a bachelor degree, you could take it in dentistry for all I care. You could take it in cultural anthropology or fine art. You can then immediately go and take a master's degree in business. Isn't that weird? I don't think there's any other any other degree or anything like that where you can take the master's level while not having taken any learning on that topic ever before, right? That shows it. We got a We got a super chat from Lauren Hicks. Hey, Lauren. Lauren says, the only practical career advice worth listening to on you. Well, thank you very much, Lauren. That's very flattering of you. I'm glad that you're enjoying listening to this. Half the time I can't get my family to listen to me for more than 5 minutes. So it's amazing that you guys can get some value out of this, me rambling on at 2 a.m. Thank you very much. And feel free to ask any questions if you have any questions, Lauren. You're awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of the first thing. A lot of people, I totally lost my train of thought. But yes, that's the first thing people need to know. Now, there's one other thing. My notes consist of about 4 words on a Post-it note, so I haven't really done too much preparation. But in the past, not recently, in the past, I've been on YouTube and I've looked at other YouTubers. Some of them are really interesting, and they talk about business, but it's like a sort of a fine line between business advice and motivational speaking. The kind of rah, you can do it kind of thing. And I think I know why they do that. They like dumb everything down to the whole, like, you can do it, believe in yourself. Because I assume anybody can relate to that. You don't need to have a master's degree to enter the conversation when it comes to that stuff. So I'm kind of torn between, like, should I start with that or should I jump to more advanced technical things? I've done that before and it just kind of turns everyone off. So I'm going to try and maybe balance this a little bit. Okay. So I just want to say one thing about the whole, like, lower level, rah motivational thing. And that is this. If you want to do this, if you have the passion to do this, you can do it. Okay. And I don't mean in a motivational sense. I mean that in a practical sense. It really doesn't take a lot to launch a successful business and have your own successful business. You just have to know a little bit. And what you need to know isn't really that hard. Okay. So it can be done. The biggest thing that determines whether it's going to happen or not, I think, is that passion. Not because directly that leads to success, but it gives you the longevity to see this thing through. You don't usually get instant success. It takes a little bit, and it takes a little bit of learning, okay, and a little bit of controlled experimentation, okay? But that's not instant success. And a lot of people, they just want instant success or they're not interested, okay? Unfortunately, if I was to sort of tell people what I predict, you can expect, it's going to be not instant success. It's going to be success in possibly as short as 1 year from when you start, but more like 2 or 3. Now, I'm sure that's already a turnoff for some people, but that's more of a practical thing. But listen, think of it this way. Time is going to pass. Okay? 2 years are going to pass. 3 years are going to pass, no matter what you're doing. Okay? So, and I don't know about you guys, but when you get to my age, it's like time passes quicker than you think. So wouldn't it be great if at the end of that 2 years or 3 years, you have launched something that's going to allow you to quit your job permanently and just do your own thing and be your own boss and do it on your terms? Wouldn't it be great if you could do that? It's not for everyone. Some people that's not their goal. And that's cool. It doesn't have to be. But for some people, it's definitely a thing. Okay. It's definitely a career path. Now, the other thing that can help motivate people is money, right? You do this, it's satisfying and enjoyable to a degree, but the real motivation is like, I can do this for the rest of my life. I don't have to work under somebody's thumb anymore. I don't have to commute. I don't have to, like whatever your pet peeves are. Okay. But the sooner you start, the sooner you finish, right? That's how it goes. So if you have the passion to see it through, the other thing, all you've got to do is along that journey, as far as I'm concerned, let's say hypothetically it takes you 3 years to succeed. Okay. I mean, okay. It's hard to get excited about something that's going to happen in 3 years, but at least it's sort of an end goal in sight. If you're really not happy where you are in the corporate world, working for somebody else. And when I say corporate world, I mean if you work as an employee. Okay, you're at the worker level or possibly a little higher, maybe supervisor or manager level, but you're still an employee. Okay, you're not an owner. You don't get to make final decision about anything that happens in your work. Okay, you're an employee. They pay you for your time, and then they tell you what to do, and you have to deliver or you're fired. Okay, if that's your life. This is something to aspire to and something that's a realistic goal if you're willing to put in the time. Think about that for a second. That's less time. Let's say it was 3 years. That's less time than it takes to get a degree in university, like a bachelor degree. Okay, so it's not like we're talking about some massive, unreasonable commitment. Okay. Now, what do you have to do? There's another kind of myth I want to bust here, and that is that if you believe Hollywood or you believe like what you see on TV, when it comes to the world of startups and entrepreneurship, what do we see? We see stories like Facebook. We see stories like, I don't know, like Google, Apple, this kind of stuff. Apple might be a bit of an exception, but it's where you get an entrepreneur that has a vision. Right? They've got it all planned out. They see it all. I can see it. I have a vision of a new world. And then they go and they bet the farm on making this vision a reality. That means I'm going to take all my life savings, all the money I have in all my bank accounts, all the money that I could beg, borrow, or steal, and I'm going to spend it all on one throw of the dice. And if it wins, I win big, but if it fails, I'm screwed. That's what we see. And of course, in all the stories on TV, they always win, right? It always works out. What we're seeing are wild exceptions. We're seeing wild exceptions to the rule. That's why they're remarkable. That's why they make them into TV shows and movies and things, right? Because they're wild exceptions to what typically happens. Usually that's not how it goes. And the other thing is that if that's what you're thinking of when you think of like, I have to start my own business. Okay, if you've seen my videos before, you're probably going to know what I'm going to say next. That's false, first of all. Don't aspire to do that. That is a recipe for disaster. Because although, yes, it does work some of the time, like literally less than 5% of the time, over 90% of the time, it fails. And I have been right where the rubber meets the road on that. I have advised many companies. A lot of startups have come to me after that point, after they've like gone for it, they've launched their thing, and it's met with a resounding silence. Nobody shows up to buy it. They panic. They've got no more money left. That's when they come to see me. And there's not a whole hell of a lot I can do at that point. They're screwed. They've borrowed so much money, to do it. And it's like, guys, what? Like, I know why they did it. I know why they did it. I'm not here to judge people. But once you learn even the basics of business or the basics of finance, you will know what's wrong with that. It's like risk versus return and all that stuff. You don't have to bet the farm on anything, despite what anybody will tell you. You don't. Okay, if you go about it intelligently. Now, let me give you a very mundane example that everyone here can relate to. I guarantee. You like it when people shake their finger at you. I guarantee. Let's take this live YouTube, my YouTube channel. Okay, like YouTube. How much does it cost to start a YouTube channel and like start putting out videos? Like nothing, right? Like you don't have to pay any cash to get a YouTube channel. Everybody gets a YouTube channel. How much does it cost to start filming videos and throwing them up every week? Not like, okay, assuming you have a cell phone with a camera on it, you have that much, and maybe even a laptop or something. Assuming you have that, okay, nothing, right? It just takes a little bit of effort. When you come home from work, every day you devote, I don't know, half an hour to like thinking of like video ideas, maybe getting everything together and then filming videos and posting, right? Right now, I'm just using YouTube as an example, okay? There are a lot of people that use YouTube as their, like that's their company, that's their venture, right? You know, I'm doing it kind of as an aside. I actually really enjoy it. It's probably the easiest job or easiest thing I've ever done for money. You know, you get to stay at home and you get to do this. But it's a great example. It illustrates it. I mean, do you have to borrow $150,000 to start a YouTube channel? Of course not. Of course not. It breaks that model that you see in a lot of movies and things where you see how famous entrepreneurs have made it. Right? At least traditionally famous entrepreneurs, the Steve Jobses, the Bill Gates, you know, people like that, the Mark Zuckerbergs. Okay. It sort of breaks that. That's not what you have to do. I mean, there are many examples in your hometown, all those people that have little construction companies and stuff, you know, they've got like a little plumbing company. You know, they didn't have to borrow $150,000 to get it off the bat. If you look at how these people start, okay, and this is the thing that I recommend to everybody, no matter what you're trying to do, okay? Instead of betting the farm and then just gambling everything on one throw of the dice, instead, you do it in these like little, easy, controlled stages, right? Where you don't really spend anything in the beginning and see if you can get a couple of customers. And if you get a couple of customers, I still recommend not spending anything, but even at that point, okay, if you want to spend something, maybe at that point you could justify spending, I don't know, $100, you know, something like very small, something manageable, right? And then see if you can build it to a few dozen customers, right? Or a few dozen sales, whatever you're trying to do, right? So for example, let's say you wanted, I don't know, let's do this together, a restaurant. I know nothing about the restaurant business, but that's one of those things that people talk about when they say, I want to have my own business. They, you know, insert name of business. A restaurant, there you go. Restaurants, I believe, are famous for having a high startup failure rate. So every year of all the new restaurants to start, the vast majority of them fail, like within a year or whatever it is. They have a high failure rate. But think of restaurants, okay? Now, what would you need to do, okay? What would you need to do if you want to have your own restaurant? Well, that sounds very expensive, okay? You need an installation. You need like a brick and mortar building on a plot of land, right? So you're either buying land, you're buying a building, or you're leasing it from a commercial company. You could even do renting, if possible. It's possible to rent commercial property. You know, this kind of thing, right? So what you would do traditionally, the thing I don't advocate for, is you'd borrow all the money you can, like the price of a house, you know, level money, and then use it to buy like a building or, you know, lease commercial space, whatever, right? Pay for all the kitchen equipment, you know, fix the entire place up, renovate it, get a big sign on the street, take out ads and all the online and, you know, the traditional print media. Costs an absolute fortune. And then just pray that people show up. Right? That's what they do traditionally. And like I said, most people fail. That doesn't work. Because the thing is, if it's not a smash hit, you're done. You're done. You spent all your money. You can't get any more money. And on top of that, you got to start paying it back, right? Not to mention income replacement. You need money to live. So you have to be making a profit, right? So you can eat. Not at your restaurant, but at another restaurant. You can go buy groceries. So, so instead, remember what I was talking about. Just think several easy stages, right? So, okay, restaurant. What kind of restaurant? Let's say it's pizza. You guys like pizza? I like pizza a little bit too much, as you can tell from my physique. People of my carriage usually say things like that. And, So let's say you want to sell your own type of pizza. Okay. Well, listen, if you feel that your food, your pizza is that good, okay, let's prove it. Let's prove it. The only way to prove it is to have people pay you money to have your pizza. You're going to sell pizza to them and they're going to like it so much, they're going to come back for more. Okay. You give them a free sample and they like it so much that they buy an entire pizza and they're satisfied with it. And they come back and they buy it again, right? That would tend to suggest that your pizza's pretty good. So if you say like, okay, I made this pizza, it's awesome. I think people would pay, I don't know, $50 for this pizza. Okay, well, let's prove it. Make this pizza and sell it, not to your friends and family, but to total strangers, people you don't know, for $50. Will they buy it? If they don't, and you can't do that in some way, shape, or form, you don't have the evidence that your restaurant selling that pizza is going to work. Okay? So this is where we have to use creative thought. How can you break down the restaurant idea into several controlled, easy stages? Well, let's say before a restaurant, before you have the eat-in restaurant, could you have like a, what do you call it? Like a delivery service? Someone calls up, they order the food by phone or off the internet. You put up a website, pizza is me, pizza are us, whatever, we are pizza, and people can order it, delivery in half an hour, whatever. Can you set that up? That would be cheaper than doing a restaurant, okay? It would still take a bit of money. You have to buy cars or lease cars and put up a website, right? Okay. What about if you could make your pizza, you don't worry about that. You're going to scale it down even more. If you could make the pizza and freeze it and sell it to a local supermarket. So when people go to buy groceries, they can buy a frozen pizza. It'll be your pizza. Okay? Can you get it in the supermarket? Will people buy it? Will people keep coming back to buy it? Okay? That would be scaling it down further, right? Could you scale it down even further? Things like this. See, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do a thought experiment. Okay, I want to have a restaurant. Okay. But what you're going to do is you're going to sort of do it in several easy stages. You're going to work up to that. Now, at every stage, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to, first of all, prove through people buying your product or your service that it works. Okay. Now, the added benefit, in addition to proving it's going to work, is that you also have money coming in. Okay. So each of these stages will finance itself, essentially. Okay. So if you could start in your own kitchen, okay, I know in reality it isn't quite this simple. There's a couple of hoops you got to jump through. Anybody can't just make food in their kitchen and start selling it commercially. You've got to get it inspected. I don't know all the deal, but the point is, you can work up to it, okay? You don't have to drop like the price of a house to get into the game, okay? You can start off as a food supplier, whatever, okay? If you worked in the pizza business, you would know, being on the inside of it, you would know what you could do that would start, right? And let's just go with that for a second. You have a tremendous advantage if you're already inside this business, in this industry. You don't have your own restaurant, but maybe you work in a restaurant or you do supply chain for restaurants or sales for restaurants, something like that. You have a tremendous window into that world. So you can see all the players, you can make connections, you know exactly who to call for different things. So that's a great position to be in if you were hypothetically wanting to start your own restaurant. Okay, so that's a tremendous thing. So if you do have an ambition to start your own restaurant, this is why I know a lot of people sort of my age that give out business advice, they say, get a job. When you're young, just for a few years, like a couple years, in the beginning, get a job in a pizza restaurant. If that's your ambition, go and see it on the inside. Not just to learn the ropes, but also to, sort of you're going to go in there as like a spy, to see how things are done. Like, if I want to get my kitchen licensed so that I can make food in it and start selling it to department store, to grocery stores, right? What do I need to do? Who are the people that can inspect it and certify it? And, if I need special equipment, where can I get that special equipment? Blah, 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 right? So it's great being on the inside of these businesses in the beginning when you're very young. You can see exactly what you need to do, right? That's something to keep in mind. But my point is that if your ambition was to have the restaurant, you could break it down, right, to these several easy stages. And each of these stages, like let's call it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, you would have to validate each of the phases, stages, whatever, sequentially. So it proves it's going to be, there's demand for it. People like it. You iron a lot of the bugs out as you go. Okay. You think people will like this. Oh, it turns out they don't. But you do learn that they do like this other thing. And you go, okay, cool. I could do that. And you do it and everybody likes it. They buy it. Okay. So like you're ironing bugs out of the plan, right? So when you finally scale up to the full-blown restaurant, you've proven all the essentials along the way. You already know the food people like. You already know the price they're willing to pay. You already know where those people are, how you reach them, okay, how you keep them coming back for more. And you already have, on a limited scale, you already have a market, an audience, a customer base that knows and likes your product or service, right? So it makes it easier to launch the full-blown restaurant when you already have an established customer base, right? When you announce, hey, I'm opening my restaurant, this time, day, place, come and show up, discounts, first day. You send it out to your mailing list, to the people that you already know your products, love your products, are willing to pay for your products, and they all show up on day one, and it's a success, right? And then the only problem you have then is where to go from there. Maybe a chain of restaurants. You lather, rinse, repeat, and do, more of them. So that's in a nutshell, like when you boil it down, that's the approach that I recommend. Easy stages, okay? Don't bet the farm on anything. You don't have to take out, ludicrous amounts of money and just in this high risk, high stakes bet, and you just hope and pray that you did everything correct. And it's like trying to get a hole in one in golf, right? You just stake everything. You bet your life savings on the fact that this next, ball in golf, whatever, is going to be like a hole in one. It's a terrible idea. You get to the point where you've proven everything, every piece of it over and over again. So when you put the whole thing together, it's very close to a sure thing. And the beauty is, if you do it right, depending on, what business you're in and all this kind of stuff, you could even get it so that it finances itself. You don't have to go into debt. You don't have to be a slave to banks or any other type of lender, and then you've got it made, right? And you've earned it because you've learned how every piece of it works along the way. It isn't a wild guess. You've learned every piece. You've learned how to make pizza. You've learned how to sell it. You've learned what grocery stores want because they have to sell it to their customers. So they're actually a lot wiser than you would think. You've learned what the person who likes to order delivery, you've learned what they want, what they're willing to pay for and what they're not willing to pay for. You've learned all that. You've also scaled up, so you now know what it's like to make, say, 10 pizzas an hour, instead of like one pizza a day. Now you're selling 10 an hour. Okay, you've done all that. So you're no longer cooking it yourself. Now you've got multiple people involved. You got a couple of people. You got people making the pizza. You got people answering phones. You're dealing with a website. You've sort of scaled up and you've sort of learned all these pieces as you've gone. So now when you want to go to a physical restaurant, your fundamentals are all there. Your customer base is there. It's simple. So it's that approach that I would recommend to anybody wanting to start their own business. Okay. You can do this. You don't have to bet the farm. You don't have to borrow insane amounts of money. You don't have to do a high risk thing. All you risk in the beginning is your time being wasted. That's all you risk. And possibly possibly some people sort of rejecting you and saying, no, I don't want to buy your pizza. Right. And you're like, ouch. It's like that kind of thing that you can't take back, you know? So you risk a little bit of that. Okay. But I mean, if you're serious, that shouldn't be too much of an ask, right? You should be able to risk, you know, if you can't even put the time in or risk that, then I would argue that you don't really care about this that much. It's not a big, important ambition to you. So that's what I would say about that. That's kind of the approach I would advocate. So what does this mean? This means that you can do this. You can have your own business. You don't need vast quantities of money. You don't need to just have lots of stuff necessarily. Obviously, that's going to vary depending on what business you go into. But like, look at the YouTube example as a clear example. Everybody watching this can relate to. What do you need to get on YouTube? Not much. You need a camera of some kind, either on a phone or a computer. And what are you risking? You're risking your time being wasted. And maybe you risk seeing a few bad comments, you know, like, you suck. Your video sucks. You're too fat to be on YouTube. You know, stuff like this. That's stuff they might say, you know. That's okay, though, because you can block them and then you get on with your life. But, and that's never happened to me before at all. I've just heard rumors. But yes, so these are the things in play. We've got to dispel some of these myths. YouTube is mainly made up of younger people. People in their 20s, I think, are the highest demographic, closely followed by people in their 30s or their early 30s. That's great. You know, you guys have many, many years left in your lives. Life is long. You know, surely if you have another 40 years ahead of you, 50 years ahead of you, 60 years, it's like maybe you could take 2 or 3 and learn business and put it towards trying to do something. So yeah, there you go. I just need to take a drink. Rule number 1, don't spend a lot of time talking to people in the evening if you have to do this late at night. That's what I'm learning. Also, everyone in my family, I think, has had a cold, so I'm sure I've got that too now. Give you a bit of a sore throat. Anyway. Yeah, so as a reminder, if you are a member of my channel, you can, it's always this hand. You can do that. You can type in questions if you're a member, and it will show up there. Let's see. What did I have here? Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention of something else that's important too is if you go to a bookstore, let's say you go to Chapters or Indigo or like, what are the books that bookstores that, I mean, yes, there's Amazon, but I'm talking about like a physical bookstore. I don't know if people still go to those. It's great because you can sort of browse and see all the books, right? That's the great thing about brick and mortar stores. You can go and you could touch every book in the store. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Everyone loves that. But it's great because you can see what's there, right? So it's funny when I've been to bookstores, you know, before the whole COVID thing, I would go to the business section just to see what they had. And usually it'd be like a small section. And, you know, there's some okay books there, but there's some like just really not okay books. It's like people that just write a book, you know, they could write anything in there and it just gets published and, you know, sure, here you go. Right. I've seen like, you know, accountants write books about like how to start your own business. And of course, the only thing they talk about is accounting, you know, no thought whatsoever to like anything industry specific or marketing or, you know, how to, you know, like efficiency, like nothing. It's all about accounting. It's all about where to get the money. It's all about, you know, I remember I flipped through one of them last time and it was like, just get some money, And then now that you have all this money to play with, here's how we're going to do the accounting statements. It's like, really? That's your advice for how to start a business? So what I'm trying to say is that, there are business books and there are business books. There are actual business books that talk about business principles of how things work that have been written by professionals that are peer reviewed, which means that it doesn't get published. It isn't okayed unless a lot of other experts on business agree with it, right? A lot of them are written by professors. Usually, not universally, but usually, if it's written by a professor, meaning someone who has a PhD in a university, if they write a book on something, usually that means it's good, especially if the book is then recommended as a textbook in the university. Because a professor can write a book. They could write whatever stuff they want in a book. But if it's being used in a school, especially in a university, then people will be looking at it, making sure that it's accurate, making sure that it's appropriate. Okay? It teaches you everything you need to know for that topic. And what it does say is accurate. Okay, so that's usually a good source of information. And remember what I said earlier, business is not hard. If you have other skills, you have some skills in life, you're not like, working at like a sort of untrained labor job or something, but you actually do something. You're a technician or an accountant or, like whatever, somebody, you're in the skill trades, whatever. Like you can understand this stuff. It's not so hard that like, most people can't understand. Most people can understand this. Okay. If you've taken high school, you can understand it. No problem. Okay. They don't go into fancy math. They don't go into fancy complicated concepts. It's not like you're studying law or something, where the terminology is like a real barrier to understanding it. No, this stuff is relatively straightforward. Right? But I would just say, if you want to learn business, go to the source. Okay, that would be my recommendation. And do I have a conflict of interest here? Maybe a little bit, because I do have a course. Okay, let's be upfront about this. I have a course, which is basically kind of what I'm describing. It's like, what I did is I took like the most popular textbooks for each subject in an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration, which is like the qualification to know business. And what I did was I took like, these winning books in each topic, most of them which I had used myself in my life. And I put them together in a package, and you can take the course and you just basically read the books. I have videos that guide you through it and stuff, but it's a self-study thing. You read it. There's no evaluation, so you can go into it as deep as you want or as light as you want. That's fine. It's made for people that just want to understand the material, but they don't need a fancy piece of paper at the end. They just want to learn. How does this work? I need to learn finance. I need to learn marketing. I need to learn operations. How does it work? So I put that together. Okay. But okay, regardless of, if you take my course or not, if you just want to learn this stuff and you want to get a book on it, okay, I recommend textbooks that are used in university. How do you find these books? How do you find said book? It's very, very simple. Go to your favorite university, okay? It could be your local university in your that's near you. If you live in a city, it could be the university in your city. And go online, look at their business program. If they have an MBA program, that's really good. Sometimes they publish this information publicly, sometimes they don't. But if they do, look in their MBA program, look at all the courses that are in it, and then look at the textbooks they're using. Okay? Now, it might cost you like, $1,000 to take that course, or, a few $1,000s to take the program. But you can buy the book off of Amazon. You could look at the little ISBN number, like the unique number of that book. You plug it into Amazon, you see, oh, look, they got it used for $10, and then you order it. this book on accounting. I don't know anything about accounting, but I'd like to at least learn the idea, the basics of it, so that if I go into business, it would be a very, very useful thing to know. So I'll at least know the basics. So I'll get this book on accounting, and I'm not going to read it cover to cover, but I'm going to I'll browse through it. If it's really interesting, I'll get into it and read it. If it's less interesting, I'll kind of skip the boring parts and just read the concepts that are important to me, that I'm curious about. Okay, so you could do that. And that's essentially what I've done. I've just wrapped it up in a package. Okay, but that's what I'd recommend. Okay, this stuff is not inaccessible. We have some amazing tools here in the 21st century. You can look up these books, you can order them, bam, right to your door. I have absolutely no connection or affiliation with trying to sell books. I don't profit off this in any way whatsoever. This is just what my advice would be. And spend the next couple of years just learning this stuff, because these are the keys to being independently wealthy and taking control of your life and control of your career and your financial life. Okay. Also, the other advantage, and I don't want to get stars in everybody's eyes, but the other advantage is that there's no ceiling, right? Like when you work at a job, there might be a ceiling there. If you want to make more than $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever, you would have to become a vice president, and maybe you don't have the education or the connections for that, or whatever. But this is like, there's no ceiling on it, right? It's like, take the YouTube example. There are YouTubers, Mr. Beast, whatever. It's like, there's no ceiling to their income. I don't know what education Mr. Beast has, but I get the impression it's not that much. I don't think Mr. Beast has a PhD, but I think Mr. Beast is making like about as much as about 50 PhDs. At least that's the impression I get. So that's the other great thing about it too. If you're into it, it can pay off big time and break through that ceiling, right? I know there's a lot of people out there that lament the fact that they don't have a university degree, or they don't have, a trade, or, or whatever. And, for a lot of people, that they feel that that's going to limit them. And I don't want to say they're idiots for thinking that, because it does for a lot of people, but not necessarily. You can still find legitimate, ways to earn a lot of money by providing a lot of value. And it's going to take something like this, though. It's not something that you can stand with your hand out and someone's just going to give it to you. You have to learn. And if there's something you want to do, you investigate the possibility of doing it professionally, meaning you get paid for it. And there you go. How long should this chat be, I wonder? It's been an hour. Maybe I'll go on for a little longer. If you do have any questions that you really, really must ask me, you can join my channel for, I think it's like $5. And then you can ask questions. Or you could do a super chat like Lauren did. I suppose you could do that too. But for $5, you could join, and then you could have unlimited questions on any of these. So that might be a better deal. You also get some members only videos, and I've recently changed what I'm doing with those. It's more personal videos on my side. So if you're into that kind of thing, might be an idea. Yeah, so that's what I would say. That's what it takes. Now, the other kind of part of this is the obvious question a lot of people have is like, okay, that's great. That's all well and good, Bill. I want to do this thing, but you say it's so easy to do. What actually do you do? This is where I was up against that thing earlier. I was saying, the sort of motivational speech versus let's get down into the weeds, into the technical details. Well, the starting point of that is to use the internet. Okay. I think the internet is absolutely fantastic. I'm an older guy, so when I was young, there was no internet. This sort of came in, later on. And I think it's absolutely amazing, because if you're sitting at a desk watching this on a desktop or you're on your phone, or you're on a device like a tablet, you have in your hand a tool that if you know how to use it and you develop the skills in how to use it and you put a little bit of time into it, you can literally reach millions and millions of people, okay? You have that in the power of your hand. This is something that, forget about individuals, this is something that companies couldn't even dream of when I started, okay? You can reach like the entire world just from the palm of your hand if you've got a phone. You want to see my phone? This is my phone. It's absolutely ancient. This is a Windows phone, okay? It's 10 years old, literally 10 years old. You can tell by my taped up screen. It's a very professional color too. Reason I still use it is because it's got a 41 megapixel camera on it. I just love it. And my wife has the Samsung and all the latest stuff. And it's like, the camera still isn't good enough. It still isn't as good as this thing. It's not about the pixels. It's about, just the colors look bad compared to this. So I stick with this. It's pretty much obsolete in every other respect. But the camera is still competitive. And that's why I like it. I like it so much that I bought 2 extra brand new copies of it off the internet, sealed in a box. Yes, I know, you can all laugh now. Anyway, but no, what the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, okay, the internet, just with your phone or whatever, you can reach millions of people. So whatever you want to do, let's say you were that food ventriloquist that we talked about earlier. That's your ambition. You want to be the world's #1 food ventriloquist, okay? You can throw your voice at a sandwich from across the room. Your lips don't move. Spellbinding, okay? People line up around the block and they want you to take their money so they could see you do your thing, okay? That's your ambition, right? Now, you and I, listening to this, probably think that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. People aren't going to pay $1,000 for a food ventriloquist, maybe $500, but not $1,000. That'll never get off the ground. However, thanks to that device in your hand, whether it's a phone or a computer or a tablet, whatever, you can reach millions of people with your device. You can find the 10 people in the world that would pay $1,000 to see a food ventriloquist, and you can get them to be your customer. That's the power, okay? That's what you can do. Just right now, if you knew exactly what to do, just with that equipment, you could make this happen today, right? And I know I'm using a ridiculous example, but hopefully you get the point, right? Whatever it is you want to do, you already have the tools to make it happen, okay? You can access all the customers. You can tell them, hey, I'm doing my food ventriloquist act. That's a mouthful. My act tomorrow, come on down, and they'll all flock to see you, cash in hand. So that's the thing. Now, if you're let's scale it down. It's something a bit more realistic. I always use the plumbing company as an example. You want to be a plumber. You're a plumber. You went to trade school. You've worked as a plumber for a couple of years. You hate it. People are mean. They put you on the night shift. They put you, with a bunch of psychopaths. People that are like really nasty individuals. Those are your coworkers. You hate it, right? They make you work 15-hour shifts. Horrible, right? And then at the end of the day, even though the customer is paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour for the services of your plumbing company, they still pay you minimum wage. Okay, let's say that was your thing, right? Okay, so you're being exploited, and in addition, the conditions of the job are just very unfavorable. They don't have to be like that. It's just that's what the employers do because they can, right? So you decide, okay, I'm going to be an independent plumbing contractor, right? What do you need to do that? Well, you need some tools, some plumbing tools, a truck, and a phone, right? And you could be an independent plumbing contractor. There you go. Now you're doing work for home builders and commercial real estate companies, whatever, right? It's really not that complicated, and it's not, as ambitions go, that's not exactly shooting for the moon. but it's realistic. It's practical. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do it. It isn't brain rocketry we're talking about. Okay. So let's say that was your ambition, right? Well, thanks to your phone or your device, okay, you can connect with all the would-be plumbing customers in your area, okay? You can tell all those people the fact that, hello, I'm here and I offer these services. You could tell them exactly what you do. You could connect with them better than any other plumbing company in the city, if that's what you wanted to do, right? Okay. And you could give them compelling reasons to choose you over your competition. Maybe your competition are bigger plumbing companies. And yeah, they're bigger, right? But they're not necessarily better. And I'll say maybe one more principle here, probably for tonight. And that is that you have this decision to make at a very fundamental level of what you're going to do. What could you do, right? And everything you do is going to fit into one of two categories: products or services. Okay. Sometimes you get a combination of both, right? But it's sort of it's either going to be products or it's going to be services or some combination of the two, right? Now, products. Okay. Let's say you're in plumbing. You could sell parts. There you go. You're a parts supplier. Okay. Maybe they've already got parts suppliers, right? But do they have them that are available that deliver things at 2 a.m? Maybe not. Maybe not as much as they want. I'm not a plumber. I don't know the plumbing industry very well, but I'm just trying to give examples, right? Maybe you are based in a particular geographic area of the city. Maybe it's a residential area or something like that. There are no other plumbing companies in that part of the city. Whenever those people need a plumber, they're calling the other end of the city or they're calling downtown, which is miles away. It's hard. It takes people an hour to get out here. But your advantage is you're 2 minutes away. Okay? If you could communicate that to everybody, you make them aware you're here, you charge competitive rates, you have wonderful customer service, they enjoy dealing with you, they know you by name. There you go. There's your competitive edge. They will call you over the big plumbing company that's on the other side of the city. Okay. As an example. Okay. Products or services. Services are the great leveling thing. So if you're worried about competition, services have a way of leveling the playing field, right? So like the plumbing example, if, you're worried about okay, I'm a one-man plumbing business, right? My competitor is a 100 employee business. They've got a giant building. They've got a fleet of vehicles. They've got a website. How can I compete against that, right? Well, you can compete with services because if you show up and you live closer and you're friendlier and you don't make them talk to 16 different people when they call in, right? People like that. You're not the one that screws up their invoice or anything like that. They like that. This is the kind of thing that will put you over the edge. It's services. Services are the great leveler, right? That's where a one-man company or a one-person company can outcompete a global multinational. Global multinational is big, but they're bureaucratic, they're distant, they're formal, right? They tend to not care about small customers because it's like chump change to them. Whereas for you, even the small customers are important. This customer is paying a piffling $500. Big company's not really interested. That's chump change to them. For you, it's important. You will treat that customer with respect. You will prioritize them. You will treat them like a human being. You have the advantage, right? So the more you learn about this stuff, you realize that there's lots of room for opportunity, okay? So product or service, that's the big question. You have to figure out what you're doing. Remember I said at the beginning of the chat, you could what I recommend is people, when they start a business, they start some kind of business venture, whether it's a side hustle or whatever, do it in sort of gradual, easy stages, validating each one as you go, making each stage pay for itself as you go, learning along the way when the stakes are low, right? Another advantage is, or another aspect to this is, if you're wondering, like, how can I break down my big end goal into these like little stages, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. What can I start with? Well, you could think about the whole product and service mix, right? Maybe a restaurant, they provide products and services. They provide food, that's the product, and service. They give you a eat-in environment, or they provide delivery, whatever. They cater to events, whatever, right? Like a cake store. They make wedding cakes. They cater the event. They could do general catering for events. They do birthday parties. They also provide a restaurant. You can take your family there. They also deliver to your house, right? It's a product and service mix. So you could start with any combination. You could start with a food delivery service. That's at the very low end. What do you need to do there? Have a car, maybe a website. That's it. That would be just starting with the service on the low end. On the product end, it would be, selling the frozen pizzas to a grocery store, right? Your brand of pizza to the grocery store. Okay, so think about the product service mix. If your end goal has both of those, well, let's see if we can start with the smallest part of one of those. See if you can do it. See if you can get some money coming in. And as you do it, you're starting to learn, right? So there you go. So anyway, hopefully these are some concepts that are food for thought for everybody. If your ambition is to break out of that corporate world, right, where you're an employee, you're basically a slave, and you may be exploited, you may be mistreated, you may be just uninspired. You may hate every moment of it. The worst aspect of a lot of corporate jobs for certain types of people is always the people. It's not the work you do. Sometimes it is the work you do, but a very common complaint is the people. Whether it's your boss or whether it's your coworkers or other people like customers, you got to deal with customers all day. You work in customer service or something, and you got to deal with some angry customers. No matter what job you have, you don't do it on your own terms. That's the other problem, right? At the end of the day, that's what gets people. That's why they have to pay you, because every day you might not feel like doing it. It's not like you hate what you do. It's just that, you have to be there at a certain time every day. That's what the issue is. And just being able to do something where you don't have some authority standing over you saying, you have to do this today. It's time to get up. It's time to get out the house, right? So that's the reason that you might want to do this. And look at it this way. You can always do a side hustle. It's like you have something on the side. You have money coming in. It's a great thing to hone your skills, to learn this stuff while not having to quit your day job. Okay, it's the best of both worlds. You can do your day job, you got money coming in, maybe you make a little extra money on the side with a side hustle. It's just kind of a bonus, right? Yeah, it takes a little bit of extra work, but you can control it. You can do it on your own terms. And that's a great combination. And who knows, one day you may want to take that and make it your number one thing, your number one or sole source of income, because it's really paying off. And it's also great because even if you stay with that arrangement where you work a day job, but you've got a side hustle going, it gives you more security because you've got two sources of income. You've got two revenue streams. So if something happens at work and they're laying people off, it's not the end of the world. You still got your side hustle. You got some money coming in. And if you are laid off or whatever, you can always try and ramp up your side hustle so that it brings in even more money than what it has been doing, right? So these are great options for a lot of people. It's definitely something I recommend people to look into. It's the eventuality of the whole getting hired thing. Okay. In order to be a great manager, a great executive, you need to know this stuff anyway. This is where it takes you. Right. So, and I mean, that's also logical when you think about it. So it's great on multiple levels. It's great for multiple reasons. If I was young again, if I was in my 20s, if I was in my 30s, this would be a no-brainer for me. I would learn all I could about business. And then whatever creative thing you want to do, or whatever sort of type of work that you're passionate about, maybe turning that into a revenue generating operation, would be a good idea. I learned business later. I worked well over 10 years just on the technical side, being an employee, doing technical stuff, before I was even aware of this whole other world and how important it was. So yeah, anyway, if you're thinking of doing that, go down to your, get on the internet, look up some textbooks. You could do it that way, or you could check out my course. I have my course there, the $100 MBA. Check that out. I put a link in the description. I also put a link where it gives you the link to another video where I answer a lot of questions specifically about the course, how it works, what you get, what you can expect. So whatever, if you're into that, great. No pressure to anybody. But thank you so much. This is probably good for today. I committed to doing another 4 of these for sure. Possibly more if people want me to do more of them, but I will do at least 4 more of these. Probably at the same time, like really late Friday night. I'm going to keep this up for at least 12 hours so people can rewatch it. They can review it on Saturday morning if that's what you're into. And then after that, I'll get moved over to my second channel. How do I do this? There. The Company's Expert 2. That's where all these are going to be archived. And you could catch it there, I guess. If you do have any questions, join as a member and I'll be happy to answer them. Or leave a comment, maybe not here, but just leave a comment, maybe on my second channel when it ends up there, on if there's a specific topic you'd like me to cover or something, or a suggestion, and I will look at those. So thank you, everybody. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for tuning in, especially so late. I hope to see you again, same time next week, where we will do another one of these live streams on Beyond Employment, how to break away from the corporate world. Thank you so much. Have yourself a great weekend. Take care.